And happy Friday, happy Halloween, and welcome to, well, we're officially WASBO today. A little name change for the Halloween season. You should see our website if you haven't seen it. We went we went all in on WASBO and Halloween themes. So this is Money Talks, our monthly webinar. I'm Mike Berry. We've got our usual cast of characters, Andy Weiland from Oregon, Brian Adesso from Menasha. How are you guys doing?
Getting ready for trick or treating tonight, Mike.
Yeah, doing really well, and I love the website. I mean, that was great.
Yeah, it's pretty out there. So how Trick or Treat was like last Saturday in Oconomowoc. So this feels like this drawn out thing. And even though this happened over 50 years ago, I still have a complaint that one year I came home with my pillowcase with about 5 pounds of candy in it from trick-or-treating all afternoon and into the night. And I arrived home um, just as my mother ran out of Halloween candy. And she looked at me and she said, "Give me that pillowcase." And she started passing out my candy. So I know I should probably be over it by now, but I'm not. So anyway, welcome to WASBO. Hey, before we go too far, I want to do a special recognition here for our friend and colleague in DeForest, Kathy Davis Phillips. So I'm going to start with the end. Kathy is fine and she's home recovering and she's going to be 100% back and soon. But Kathy was getting ready to do her DeForest School District tax levy meeting at night a few nights ago, and then she had a sort of an emergency medical issue just as the meeting was getting started, and had to be wheeled out of the meeting in dramatic fashion on a gurney and taken out to an ambulance, and and as she was being wheeled out of the meeting, the last thing she said to the superintendent was, "Make sure that you explain that the levy is being driven by voucher costs." What a hero. So we don't have an official Purple Heart, for WASPO like they have in the military, but I think we might start one. So anyway, Kathy is fine, and if you get a chance to email her and wish her well, I'm sure that that she would appreciate it. So you guys ready to dive in and do this?
Excited.
All right. So we got like four different topics today, and a couple of sort of macabre cartoons along the way. Um, so let's dive in. Let's see if I can make these screens work. Okay, so here's the usual. This is our disclaimer slide, right? This is the one that says, "Please don't sue us for anything we happen to say here on Money Talks, um, or else we'll have to contract with Saul Goodman, our WASO attorney, um, and try to get out of it." Obviously, we're just colleagues sharing our best opinions, our best thoughts. So I suppose putting that cartoon right under our pictures is probably um, I think Brian's the guy writing on the wall. Andy's the one counting on his toes. I'm the one counting on my fingers. I don't know who the other one is yet, but anyway, this is us doing our best. So don't get mad at us if we're not perfect. All right, enough with the disclaimer. Let's get into this. I think this first topic is really interesting. This is more of an awareness thing. This is a new 4K community-based issue that came out of the new state budget. It's not in effect this year. It will be in effect next year. And I guess on paper it's a 1 year program, but yeah, these things have a way of sticking once they get started, don't they? When they get into the law. Um, so um, a lot of the school districts have 4K that is community based, and you count those kids and you pay, right, some kind of agreed upon contracted amount. It's usually somewhere between 3,000 3,500, something like that. Well, what's new about this Get Kids Ready program is that the daycare providers can sign up for us to sign up at the state, right? They do it. It's direct payments from the state, and it would be $7,200. I don't know any of the school districts that are paying $7,200 in actual cash. Most are paying, like I said, between 3 and 4,000, and then backfilling a lot of extra services like transportation and PD and curriculum and so on, so on, so forth. So, um, first, I guess it's just an awareness issue to know that this is out there and that it could kind of sneak up on us. I mean, it's tomorrow, it's November already. So, I guess I'll start with you, Andy. You have community-based 4K, don't you?
Absolutely, we do. And our providers have heard about this. We've been telling them kind of what you mentioned at the beginning is that, it's a 1-year program. There's a lot of unknown components to this related to politics. It's kind of put into the budget at the last minute. So anybody knows where this goes. But the other thing is in our regional, somebody did the math and, the amount of money per divided by the allocation. And I think there's about 9,000 spots in the entire state. And then we assume the money would be prorated. So we're sharing that information with our providers too. And, saying maybe it's better to wait a little bit and see if this thing has legs before they jump into it. And for the most part, that's kind of where folks are. They seem to be holding in with us, but you just don't know where it's going into the future. So
Right. Um, as I understand it, the if you're a daycare, you could, I believe on February 1st, you make your designation that you wish to participate in the Get Kids Ready program, in which case you're basically severing ties with the local school district. And you're going to get 7,200, excuse me, $7,045 or a prorated amount that's less than that. I think that the total pot of money was about 66 million. So with the number of kids, you can kind of back into this idea that it's very likely to get prorated down. But as of February 1st, your daycare provider could say, look, we're going directly into business with the state and we're off and running. So um, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. A lot of school districts have their 4K registration process and screening processes starting as early as December and January, right? I mean, typically. Brian, have you got that?
That's when we usually start screening in that January timeframe.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a little bumpy, I think, for a while, figuring out who's doing what. Um, and
yeah,
it's a different, it's not apples and apples here. The as this slide says, use a curriculum that meets Wisconsin model learning standards. That's not the same as K-12 standards. And a certified teacher is not a licensed teacher. Certified means 2 years, right? Not four. So there's some interesting differences in service levels and so on. Um, when I was in Madison, we had both, and I'm out of there, so I can speak freely. Some of the 4-year-old community-based programs were terrific. Some were literally not at all terrific, and we had a really hard time with that because about 30% of those kids were English language learners, and we wanted to get them off to a good start. And so this has always been an odd fit, um, the community-based 4K. And I guess one just reminder, our state constitution going like all the way back to pioneer days has always said public education for students 4 to 20, not 5 to 20. I mean, the 4-year-old mandate has been there since the 19th century. Sometimes I think the daycare folks feel like we're kind of poaching when we get into the 4K programming world, but it's legally that's not the case. I think this is going to depend on go ahead.
Mike, I wanted to provide some context to that because we've been knee deep in the daycare
Yeah.
realm because of stuff we're doing. And, um, just through those conversations with state officials and legislators and stuff, and they're hearing from daycares that, by us doing like 4K, like it's pulling away the lower cost kids out of their daycare centers. So it's really expensive to have a baby, a 0 to 12 months old in daycare. Like it requires a lot of um, just work. Like the ratios for them are very, very small. I think it's like 8 to 1 or 6 to 1 for staffing. Whereas a 4-year-old, the staffing can be much, much greater. I think it's almost up to 18 to 1. So I know legislators were looking at too that when we start to push into 4K, or even if we wanted to go down to 3K, now we're making daycare even more unaffordable and more like the business model starts breaking down for daycare centers because now they're left with the really expensive ones, and then daycare centers have to charge families so much more. And at some point, I mean, it's just not affordable. I mean, we already know that daycare in a lot of places is well over $20,000 a year per kid. Um, and in some areas it's approaching close to 30,000, where that's just not affordable.
Right.
And then on the fun side, since it is Halloween, why is the state not creative? Like, get kids ahead, get kids ready, like get kids fed, get kids funded, like are we not a creative state that we can't get like different names? It's like wise data, wise finite, like come on. We need to be more creative in this state.
Yeah. I think like I if we have like 4 more hours, we can take on wise data. I guess we could bring that on because it's a really scary and frightening topic for all of us. Sorry, Matt. We're big fans of yours. Um, I think as the financial pressures on school districts have gotten more and more um, severe, that if you're a typical district with a $12,000 revenue limit per pupil and a kindergartner is a point 0.6 or 4K is point 0.6, that's about $7,200 of revenue limit authority. Um, and and you're probably paying, like I said, in cash, maybe 3,500. I don't know that districts have been in a position to be super generous and kicking that up to, up to 4,000 or 4,500 or 5,000. It seems like it's never the right time. Andy, how have you approached that?
Yeah, that is something we've been trying to increase that dollar amount, kind of proportionally to how much we've gotten. We haven't always made it that way, but I think there is a moral component to this because just like we're having a hard time finding folks, they have a hard time finding folks,
Right.
and I think there is we need to be looking at that a little bit. I will say on the reverse side that sometimes if you're in an area that has a lot of community programming, talk about this in your regional because sometimes you get people that are like, oh, we got to go right to 7,000 or something like that, and then we get this issue where we're all kind of competing against each other. So I think it's always good to make sure we all know what we're doing and also to cost those services that we're providing. Transportation, coordination, all those types of things do have a cost to them. So, but I think there's opportunity for us to grow those allocations as well.
Yeah. It's just a really interesting thing. And I mean, of course, this all reduces down to what's best for the kid, right? I mean, we can talk buses and contract amounts and all this stuff, but really, what is the best thing for this 4-year-old? How do we get this kid, any of these young people, ready, to thrive in school? And there's probably more than one way to do that. But it's going to take a lot of communication within your school district, within your region. It takes some budget modeling. You might decide to offer 4K in your school district if you haven't before, all sorts of variables. And it's all going to kind of come down between now and spring. So our purpose here was just to kind of alert everybody to the sort of realities. And depending on how you're situated, there are three bullets on this screen. If you're like Brian and you have in-house 4K and no community-based providers, you're kind of in like a low risk for disruption kind of situation. And on the other end of the spectrum, if you're entirely contracted out, as Andy is, we got both ends of the spectrum. Andy, you're kind of at much higher risk for a significant disruption to your planning model. And then, of course, if you've got both, you're kind of in the middle.
Well, and keep in mind too, it's not just the revenue limit that this impacts; it will be your state aid. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, I was talking to one of our colleagues who's a business manager in Dane County, who said if I lose a few hundred 4K kids out of my count, my property value per pupil is going to go up like a rocket. And I'm negative tertiary, and I'm going to get killed on state aid.
Yep.
So he's like, so now who am I? Now whose interests are at the table? Taxpayers, little 4-year-old Hector, right? The teachers union may have something to say about what they think ought to be done. A lot of interesting dynamics. Certainly your curriculum people are going to have something to say about it. So it seems like a tiny little program, but it's a tiny little program that can set a lot of things in motion. So our purpose here was just to bring it to everyone's attention. You should be talking about this at your administrative team meetings and figuring out where you want to go.
I think this is really something like, I think we were probably behind the eight ball on, because if we really think about like what's best for the kid, community based is probably best unless you're offering a full day because then they don't have a transition in the middle of the day.
Right.
Like for our program, we do bus to daycares, but you know, we just bus there. So the kid has the transition during the day. So that's not what's best for the kid, or the family. Um, but I mean, we should have been talking about this. I do understand like the DHS or the Child and Family Services, they're trying to get a per pupil amount in for daycares to get them funded and like schools do. So they're trying to use that same mindset. So I think they're trying to tip their toes in by going this route, but I don't think they understood what impact it would have on schools. Um, probably because no one's talked to them about that. And I don't think that they would have wanted to have a negative impact on schools.
But it was in a different part of the budget. Like we were surprised by this, and like a month and a half into the year. So yeah, the connection wasn't made. I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's right. It came from the Department of Children and Family Services, if I recall. And I'm not sure. Maybe they just didn't want to talk to the school districts. Maybe they thought the school districts would move to try to kill this thing right away. Um, so
And
now
the,
out
the
there,
the the secretary of the department came from a school district, I believe. Um, so I mean, he does get schools. It's just that balancing act.
right. Well, there's the timeless law of unintended consequences, right? And we'll see how the districts react and how the providers react. It's going to be very interesting to see it played out. It's just one of those situations where if you've got a good team in your district, your key leadership team, um, you should be on this and working through those variables and talking with your board and mapping out a plan, right? And obviously talking to your daycare providers. So interesting challenge. If you were thinking that you're going to have a quiet November, December, right? It's probably the one time a year where business managers are like, okay, I can maybe start to clear my desk off a little bit. Well, this one's going to add a little complexity to your life. So hopefully mission accomplished this morning that we've brought this to everyone's attention and encourage you to start planning. You guys got anything else you want to add on this one?
It's a spooky topic.
All right, here we go. Issue number two. Here we go. Okay, so equalization A, this is more of a look back. You guys have all been on this since October 15th, obviously. And I mean, I guess you still technically have until tomorrow, right, to adopt your levies. It's on or before November 1, right? So, but I'm betting that 99% of the districts have done this already. So, um, just a little bit of a look back. I think the third bullet is the one I really wanted to get to. Yeah, the 5.58 billion was a no increase for this year. It's a no increase for next year. Hasn't happened in a long time. But that third bullet, it was MPS's actuals came in late in the process, and it caused a swing in equalization aid of about 105 million that was allocated towards MPS. And I mean they qualify for it just like anybody else qualifies for it. That's not the issue. The issue is that it came in so late that it made the July 1 aid estimate um, be less accurate than it could have and should have been. And even the like um, Pete the predictor and with his fearless financial forecast, even he was struggling to model because as we said at the time, not all the district's information was in. So we got to do a better job on that. Because it's tough enough to go to your board and say we got a 5% levy increase in the August or September, and then come back and go, oh yeah, it's worse. And no one wants to do that, right? Um, so we've got
Mike,
some work to do there.
Mike, I think we still need to continue to have conversations with the DPI too. And yes, the July 1st estimate is required by law and it specifies how to do it, but that doesn't mean that we can't update that estimate and, with actual amounts. We're all reporting now to DPI. A lot of us are reporting monthly on actual costs. So, I mean, we could get better on this and we could have a much better number before October 15th.
If we went to kind of like a rolling update kind of a
Yeah.
model,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe they've got the technical capacity to do that now. Um,
They're probably pretty close to it. But it's important, and it's becoming more and more important. And I think we just need to keep stressing that to DPI. Like, if you have the technical ability to do this, let's do it.
yeah,
The other thing I keep thinking about it is though, prioritize the larger districts because they're the ones that are going to have the impact, right? Like
right.
if I'm off a couple $100,000, nobody's going to know, but millions of dollars.
I know
Yeah.
Andy. I know Andy. I watch you.
Well, this is usually when the chat starts filling up with opinions about DPI, but let's not do that to them this morning. Um, they're working hard. I got a text from one of the DPI folks at like 12:30 in the morning the other day. So they're working hard. The October School Financial Services, I mean, October 15th results, 26% of districts had an increase in equalization aid. 71 decrease. Wow. Um, and 3% that were flat. I think sometimes we speak in shorthand and say, well, you can't lose more than 15%. And that's true, but that's true only of equalization aid, right? But general aid is bigger than that. And it includes what, like the hold harmless type of aid in there, the special adjustment aid, and there are corrections from the prior year, and there's the old Legacy 220 program for the Milwaukee area. So you can lose more than 15% overall. So you see a lot of 18s and 19s, and I worry that maybe new business officials will think, well, 15% is the most I can lose, and it's not necessarily true. So be aware of that. And then we again, just to the point we were making earlier, it wasn't just Milwaukee. We had a lot of districts that were reporting late. We have this 80-20 rule with the districts. 80% of the you'll see this later in the presentation today. Like 80% of districts are on time and accurate, and then 20 are really struggling and percent wise. And that's why we're pushing so hard on professional standards and WASBO U and alternative licensure different things we can do to get to where we've got 100% of districts on time.
This
Um,
area was a little bit hard for me during my budget hearing because we were one of the 26% that increased in um, aid. I'm not proud of that, but I explained to the board that we're literally taking money from other school districts because we're going up, and we're taking a couple dollars from every district, and it was just a hard thing to do. I mean, when we're all kind of working together, and you're one of the ones that increased. If you really think about it, that you're taking it from those 71%.
We're all hoping for a Kit Kat bar, Brian.
that's right, Brian. I think this half-hearted apology isn't going to get it done. I think you better do something much more significant for the rest of the state. And I applaud your approach to this because every time Pewaukee gets more equalization, they start cheering. So, um, well, all kidding aside, the factors are the same for everybody, right? So there's no favoritism involved. It's just a very the formula's got so much variability in it. Um,
The chat's
that,
getting mean, Mike. I like it.
I'm gonna have to have a shirt with a target on the back of it for the next conference.
all right, you guys. Well, remember, if you didn't remind your boards, you can remind them again before the end of the calendar year that a lot of the tax relief this time is being accomplished through income and sales tax. It could just as easily have been accomplished through the equalization aid formula. That was a policy decision by the lawmakers, and it kind of left the school districts holding the bag a little bit. Okay. As you know, we've got these other programs in the state, kind of in the choice category, I guess I'll call it. And you can see the dollar amounts that are reductions to the general state aid formula. And of course, you have the opportunity, I guess, in quotes, to increase your levy to make up for these dollar amounts that are being diverted out of your aid pool. So some pretty significant numbers. The largest, of course, is the Wisconsin Parental Choice Program, 381 districts. Um, and all of these have grown in terms of number of districts, except the Racine Parental Choice Program, which only has one district. And I predict it will only stay at one district because of the name. How's that for a fearless prediction? But these are big dollar amounts, and um, part of a we do not have a coherent approach to this $16 billion entity. It's 750,000 students, but we just have this mishmash of policies, and you can kind of see that on this slide. So,
We've got.
okay, so anything else on equalization aid?
I was just going to say our slope on increasing this is linear. I mean, it's like this each year. So we went up over $100 and some thousand this year, and that's not double, but darn close to what it was last year. So it continues to increase at a good pace.
So
We
it's
increased by
often
33% for our voucher amount. We're just under $3 million now, and it's almost 13% of our levy.
the way that's always was portrayed was that these were families who participated in your public schools and had just, darn it, they'd had enough. And they were going to quit the public schools and go to this other alternative. But it's not really how it's worked out, has it? I mean, it's very hard to get an exact number year to year, but what's more than 75% of these folks have never been in a public school. Since they were in private school and they were paying for it. Now they're in private school and somebody else is paying for it. So,
I wish there'd be a way to know the number before October 15th. I mean,
right,
that's
right. Well, we'll do it. We'll probably be doing a couple of shows or topics on these choice categories going forward. It's fun to put the numbers out there for purposes of equalization aid. Um, Here's a third Friday count. So I'm going to go to the bottom bullet first because you guys have been around for a while. Either I'm hallucinating or and maybe I'm not, but I remember or I think I remember, the DPI used to put out like this 6 or 8 paragraph little analysis on Third Friday count. And it had the totals and the trends and some commentary. At least that's how I remember it. Anyway, that does not exist. So it's kind of hard to find a really authoritative summary on the Third Friday results, at least as of the count date. Um, it was so, we were kind of relying on news stories and so on. And um, going into the WISE Dash or WISE data portal is like not easy for this topic. So we put together the best information we could. Um, so public school enrollment decreased by 13,600 kids. That's a lot of kids. I mean, that's one big school district right there, right? 13,006. If you think about it. Um, um, so 1.8%. So we're down to 700 and roughly 760,000 kids in the system. I think the second bullet is the one that's really most important. Declining enrollment is not going away. We're gonna just have to adapt to it. I've said this 1,000 times. The revenue limit formula that I worked with, starting in '93, all the way through maybe 2009, while not perfect, it kind of worked. But it was indexed to inflation, and the whole state had a long general trend in upward enrollment. They called it the baby boomlet. And under those conditions, revenue limit was, oh, you could get by. And that's why operating referendums were pretty rare in that era. But in the last 10 to 12 years, it's 14 years, um, when the revenue limit was no longer indexed and the enrollment trend turned downward, that was it. Those conditions are gone, and it's what makes it so different than it used to be. And that's why you see so many districts resorting to operating referenda. So, I mean, this is not going to change. At least the variable of enrollment is not going to, it's just going to keep going down for a foreseeable future. And so I guess my point is policymakers have to deal with it and local officials have to deal with it.
I
Like
think
it's
the
not
graph.
really a
Go ahead, Brian.
it's not really a local or state, and like it's a national thing. I saw articles about LA losing a mind-boggling amount of students over the next 10 years, like cutting their district size in half.
Wow.
Where they're, I think, the second largest district in the nation. We just have a severe drop off in birth rates.
That's the
Yeah.
point I was going to make. Is the graphic that I showed our board was, graduating seniors are at 300 and some thousand, 300 and some kids. Kindergartners are at 250, and so in order to just hold your own, you have to have 100 and some kids move into your district. Well, that doesn't happen many places.
Right. You're right. It's a national, almost international trend, certainly national. Long-term demographic trend. Um, it's not going away. And I think in the era that where I was in your seat, it was kind of a big trophy for a school board or for a superintendent or even a business manager to say, look at this big new building that we built. That was like a big thing on your resume to say, we won a referendum, we built this amazing building. Um, I think we're going to have to shift to what success looks like has to be something other than that, right? Because we risk overbuilding. And there's a tension now between dollars for capital and dollars for operating. So I just think the discussion is going to have to mature from what it has been. But yeah, 3/4 of the districts are in declining enrollment right now.
And I do see school districts are responding to it. For anyone saying that school districts are just doing nothing, I mean, they're not looking
Yeah,
at the news. I mean, districts are closing buildings left and right and all over throughout the state. So, I mean, we're trying to downsize, but everyone knows on this call it's difficult for school districts to downsize because in a mid-sized district or even a small district, you can only go so small. It's not like we're set up to go to like 40 to 1 in a classroom, nor would we want to um, do
right.
that. Um,
Hey,
Nash
Mike.
has 3,000 kids.
Right.
Hey, Mike. Do you know of any organization that's doing like a PD thing related to declining enrollment?
Well, there you go. Yeah. So I think CISA One's doing a big workshop on declining enrollment and kind of what the policy choices are. That's coming up pretty soon. So I think you can find that on WASBO's website or CISA One. I'm sure it's gonna pop up multiple times over the next few years. Um, yeah, Brian, I think, I was thinking, gee, it must be tough if you're in the architecture, if your company specializes in public school, like architecture or construction management. But then what I've been seeing is not so much new additional space. It's been more like if the school district wants to close school A and move the kids to B and C, then you're going to have to remodel B and C, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought, okay, the architects and the construction managers will always find a way to stay in the game. Good for them. Um, yeah, it's I applaud the districts who are taking this on. It's not easy. You have to keep the kids at the center of the conversation, right? Sure, you can save some square footage, some operating cost, but if that kid's got to leave their neighborhood, right? Um, then, you know, I mean, customer first, right? Is this working? Is it worth it? And of course, all of the parents have so many more options than they used to have years ago. So, and the rural schools in particular are hit super hard by this because there's combination of declining birth rate. At the same time, there's a economic trend of young earners leaving the rural areas to go to the urbans, right? So declining enrollment is real. Get used to it. It's not going away, and we got to embrace it.
I love Sue's comment about consolidation for Washington Island. Would they consolidate with the state of Michigan or just the whole peninsula of Door County?
I don't know. I think we should get the UP back, and then she'd have more options. I think that I object to the state of Michigan and their imperialistic colonial strategy to take our UP. I think it's time to fight back. Um, okay, um, so Third Friday counts. Yeah, uh, hopefully message sent. Um, okay, this is our fourth and final topic for today. And this is not directly aimed at the school districts. It was aimed at DPI. And um, you can find this report online, but Wisconsin's Legislative Audit Bureau was directed by um, the lawmakers to conduct this study, and which they titled Financial Monitoring of Certain Educational Entities. Okay. And I think the root of it is that the LAB was and lawmakers were responding to some of the NPS late reporting issues, and then it was like, well, what's DPI's role in enforcing or compelling districts to get their stuff in on time and accurately. So this report really comes at it from that perspective. So they're talking mostly about DPI here in this report, but they're also commenting on the overall state of school financial reporting. And that's really what I wanted to share with you guys and with everybody here today. Yeah, we're a professional association, um, and one of our responsibilities collectively as a profession is to be self-regulating. And it's not enough for 80% of our districts to be doing great. We got to get everybody up to that level. And these numbers, I think, kind of bear that out. So these are just cut and paste tables out of this fairly lengthy report. I thought this would be interesting to just anybody because it's kind of a look as to where you are and where your peers are. So the audited financials have to go in by December 15th, right? Hopefully that's not a surprise to either Brian or Andy. So all of a sudden Brian's screen goes dark.
But I got to get something done here.
I knew I forgot something. So there you can see 77% were in on time, but 22, almost 23% were not. And a lot of reasons for that. Um, but nevertheless, it would it's how do I say this? We want DPI to be doing great work for school districts and supporting the schools, business offices, school financial services, I mean. And they can't do that if they're chasing the 96 districts all the time, right? You're constantly following up. So we gotta get better at this on the front end. Um,
Mike, I mean, this is a lot of this is on CPA firms. I mean, I don't think anyone's getting an audit in November or even October. I mean, they're usually done, by the middle of August, maybe the end of August at the latest. And we all know that CPA firms are not wanting to audit school districts because I don't think it's a moneymaker for them. So by, going after those that are getting late, so that could be a couple audit firms, and now they're not going to audit anymore because they don't need this. So, it's just going to spread the problem. I mean, I would love, you know, everything to be done from the auditors earlier, but I also want an audit firm. And we're not one that gets it submitted late, but
yeah,
But
yeah,
what we've heard from the auditing firms, right, is the requirements keep getting more and more technical and everything else, and so that's what's driving that as well.
right.
and I would love to flesh out that 96 too. I'm sure it's not all the audit firms. How much are they waiting on districts to still submit information or something like that? But I would assume that that would be a very small amount.
Um, yeah, I'm not ready to go as far as you are. I think the districts own this to a very great extent. Some CPA firms may be contributing to the problem for sure. But if we had our stuff done early and clean and get the auditors in and out, I think that would take care of an awful lot of these problems. Here's a little bit of detail. You're asking like you'd like to kind of get a peek behind the scenes, like what's really driving this. This second one, this is table three, the second slide. You can see that when we're late, we're really late. This isn't like, oh, you missed it by a couple of days. And that's so that tells me that the system's kind of blinking red. Um, and we got to do something about this. Here's this should not be surprising. This is the next slide. This is whether or not you had a clean or unmodified opinion versus a qualified opinion. Qualified opinions are pretty rare. Um, Usually means there's some significant issue that was preventing the auditors from saying that your financial statements present fairly the financial condition of a school district as of 6/30. So we get 99.5. So I'm not going to worry too much about this one. So the good news here is when the audits go in, they're clean, right? So that's a win. It's more of a timeliness issue, I think. Um, okay. Next table. So you can get a clean or unmodified opinion, but still have um, follow-up items that are noted in your audit. And this gets into the area of internal control weaknesses, right? Um, Material weakness, significant deficiency, um, and statutory noncompliance. So we've got a lot of these internal control findings happening in the school districts, and they try to break that out. The biggest one is historically has been the district has the district has failed to segregate duties within the business office, and that's almost structural, right? If you've only got one person or 1.25 in the business office, what are you going to do? And even if you have very robust compensating controls, say, well, we also have the superintendent look at the check register. We also have a board business committee look at the check register. The compensating controls do not erase the initial, um, failure to segregate. So we're kind of getting scored pretty harshly on this. I think it makes it look a little worse than it should. But as you can see, an awful lot of districts are picking up internal control weakness or deficiency scores. And I think we've got some significant PD to do around this. And we've got some work to do with DPI too, because they're ones talking to the auditors. Yeah, so this is the breakdown and what kind of findings were included in the audit reports. I should mention, I'm sorry, I should have said this earlier. This is based on the 2022-23 school year. So these are the results ending 6/30 of 23.
I think it's important, Mike, segregation of duties, right? Sometimes that's an impact of how big districts are and how difficult that is to do at times. So
Absolutely. So you can see the types of issues that came up. Preparation of required financial reports, and audit adjustments are those are those instances where the auditors are kind of being asked to step slightly out of their independent audit role and actually do some, adjusting journal entries, right? Or do something with your trial balance or what have you. So a lot of those, and a lot of segregation of duty, a lot of audit adjustments, and some cash reconciliations as well. Expenditures over budget, that was probably an ASHA, and so on. So, this is a district where the median district size is 880 kids in a district. Right. So I think we tend to, at least those of us who work down in the Madison and Milwaukee area, we tend to think of these bigger districts, but we got a lot of small districts. And so they're just positioned in such a way that they're going to likely bump into segregation of duty or preparation of financial reports. I don't know your average bookkeeper is going to be able to write up the GASB, conversion table. It's just not going to happen. But this does provide a bit of a roadmap for us at WASBO and as a profession to figure out where we can be helping with sort of targeted professional development. I think we've got just a couple more. At least one finding. I mean, 88% of districts have at least one finding. So again, I think it's structural. And then repeat findings are almost the same because often these problems are structural, if they're not one-timers, right? So that's kind of the state of the state. So I don't want to leave the impression that I think the business offices are somehow not doing well. I think it's part of a larger system of issues. I think we've got to do more PD. I think we have, okay, I'm going to offer a theory here that unless there are, how do I say this? We need boards and to take business office capacity seriously, right? We really need to get that across. We want them to recognize that investing in your business office is a way to get a clean report card at the end of the year. And right now, I think a lot of districts simply don't have the capacity. And I fear that lawmakers reading a report like this might say, well, these school districts are obviously not getting the work done. We're going to start penalizing. And then it becomes a very negative situation. So I'd like to address it more proactively. So if you want to read the LAB report, It's out there. There's also a 5-page um, letter from the department, from Jill Underly at DPI, that tries to put the whole thing in some of the context that I just offered. You might just want to read the DPI response since you've seen the findings here. And just be aware of it in case one of your board members should happen to bring it up.
Hey, Mike, just one question. Do you know why they picked 22, 23?
Well, they said 23, 24.
Oh, okay.
It's not fully settled by the time they did their audit their field work.
Okay.
So they were looking to get the most recent, fully complete data set.
I was just thinking, I mean, Esther was still kind of in play then, and I remember there were all kinds of different components.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was a 2 or 3 year disruption. I'm sure that had some impact. So yeah, that's what they said in the opening of their report was they were trying to get a complete data set.
I'd be curious to see how, as soon as they get the data set for the next year, if it got better.
Right. A little benchmarking maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, I apologize for ending the webinar on such a bummer of a topic. Almost leaves the wrong impression. I think that we offer this in the spirit of we can always do better, no matter how well we're doing. So, and that's kind of something that the profession has to take on through WASBO as an association. We have to always be in the mindset that we can do better. So, so take it constructively, right? It's not meant as a finger wag. Anyway, look at the report if you're interested. And I think that's the end of our content. You guys got anything you want to add this morning?
I'm just wondering, Brian, when are we getting our Kit Kats? Because what's the date they
Yes.
should show up?
Well, we need to take time to open them all and break off because you get one Kid Kat. You're gonna have
I
to
think
choose if you get the left one or the right one.
to make things easier, Brian, why don't you bring a couple of crates of those to the accounting conference, and we can distribute them there.
I like it.
You'll be glad to know that WASPO doesn't have a wellness policy, so you can go right ahead and bring them to our next conference. Well, hey everybody, I think we're running kind of out of time, right? We're at 8:22, 9:22, excuse me. Happy Halloween to everybody. Safe trick-or-treating today and tonight. And look forward to seeing everybody next time, which is just before Thanksgiving, November 21st, for the next exciting episode of Money Talks. Until then, keep up the great work.